A warm welcome to all the students for the lecture number 4. Today we are going to just continue our discussion on problem spaces and search. Okay, last time we had seen the problem formulation for various problems like tic-tac-toe problem or 8 puzzle problem. Okay, today we are going to continue with the other problems that we have in AI. One such problem is called as water jug problem. Now what is this problem? Okay, just before problem formulation, let me tell you what the problem is. Okay, basically there are two water jugs. Okay, there are two water jugs. One water jug is, I'll just draw here. There are two water jugs. One water jug is, its maximum capacity is 4 gallons of water or 4 liters of water. I'll just write it as 4G. And there is another jar, okay, whose maximum capacity is 3 gallons, or I will just write it as 3G. Okay. Now there are no markings made on this jars, so at any point if there is some water present in any of these jars, it is really difficult to find out how much water, how much gallons of water is present in the jar, because there are no middle markings. Okay, only when the entire jar is filled up to the rim, only then we can say that a particular jar is filled with either 4 gallons of water or 3 gallons of water based on the capacity. Okay, so this is a problem. Now there is a small tap which is provided to you, tap of water that is provided to you. Now the problem is, okay, there are different operations that you can perform. Okay, at any point of time the entire content of this 4 gallon jar or 3 gallon jar can be poured onto the ground, or the jar can be emptied. At any point of time any of these jars can be filled up to the rim, or you can fill it up to the rim. Or at any point of time, if required, you can transfer some amount of water from 4 gallon jar to 3 gallon jar and vice versa. Okay. Now what is this water jug problem? It says that using these particular set of actions which I have just mentioned, the aim is that at the end of this problem, the 4 gallon jar over here should contain exactly 2 gallons of water. Okay. 4 gallon jar should contain exactly 2 gallons of water, right? So I will just recapitulate what I said. Water jug problem is the one wherein there are two jars of water given to you. The capacity of the first jar is 4 gallons. That means maximum 4 gallons of water can be stored in this jar. There is another jar that is given to you whose maximum capacity is 3 gallons. That means maximum 3 gallons of water can be stored in this particular jar. Okay. Then the jars are such that there are no middle markings. There are no markings made on the jar. So you cannot find out at any point of time how much water is present in the jar if it is not filled up to the rim. Right. Now there is a tap of water which is provided to you. Now what are the different actions that you can perform? The actions that you can perform are, at any point of time, if required, the entire content of any of the jar can be emptied onto the ground. At any point of time, whenever required, the jars can be filled to the rim with the water, right? At any point of time, some amount of water can be thrown out from any of the jar, or it can be transferred from one jar to the second jar and vice versa. Okay. So with this possible actions in mind, what do we, what is our goal? So at the end of this particular procedure, we want exactly 2 gallons of water to be present in 4 gallon jar. Okay. So now if this is the problem that is given to you, let us first formulate the problem. So in problem formulation, let us specify what each state is meant by. So each state will be an ordered pair x, y, where x is the amount of water contained in 4 gallons jar and y is the amount of water that is contained in 3 gallon jar at any point of time. So x is a variable which can hold maximum 4 gallons of water, because 4 gallons jars maximum capacity of is 4. Similarly, variable y is a representative used to store the amount of water in 3 gallons jar. The maximum value that y can store will be 3, not more than 3, right? So basically each state will be an ordered pair x comma y. Initially, okay, there is no water present in any of these jars, so initially both the jars are given empty. So if you see here, the initial state corresponds to 0, 0, where 4 gallon jar contains 0 liters or 0 gallons of water, and 3 gallon jar also contains 0 gallons of water. So this is the initial state. What is the final state that is required by us? Now it can be said in other way around also. For example, here what I am saying is the 3 gallon jar should contain exactly 2 gallons of water, and 4 gallon jar can contain any amount of water. Okay, so the problem can be specified in any way. Okay, so in the problem formulation here, what we say is, instead of 4 gallons, okay, what output do we want? We want that at the end of this particular problem, okay, 3 gallon jar should contain exactly 2 gallons of water, right? This 3 gallon jar should contain exactly 4 gallons of water. You could have said interchangeably also. At the end of the at the end of this procedure, even 4 gallon jar could have stored 2 gallons of water. Interchangeably you can say it. So here what final state is required? 4 gallon jar can contain any amount of water, where P is a variable which can store the value from 0 till 4. 0 means the 4G jar will be empty. 4 means 4G jar will have filled fully, and any other value would mean that there is some amount of water present in the jar. Okay. Similarly, 3 gallon jar here, at the end it should contain exactly 2 gallons of water. Okay. So this is the overview of water jar problem. Let's continue. Now these are the different rules as I have specified, and we have seen yesterday, okay, production rules. Production rules are always written, what is the way of writing a production rule? It is X implies Y. Okay, so X is the state in which the system is, or X is the current configuration of the game or a situation, and after applying the rule, Y is the new situation of the game or situation of the system, right? So X is a state in which the system is present before the application of rule, and Y is the state in which the system will enter, the new state in which the system will enter after the rule is being applied. So X implies Y means from state X, after application of rule we go to state Y, right? Now the first rule, let us see. Left hand side, we know that each state corresponds to our ordered pair x comma y, where x is a representative of 4 gallons jar, y is a representative of the 3 gallon jar. So initially, okay, this first rule is applicable when you want to fill the 4 gallon jar fully, okay, filling the 4 gallon jar to its fullest capacity fully. Now this rule is applicable if the amount of water that is present in the 4 gallon jar is less than 4. Okay, if the amount of water that is present in the jar is less than 4 gallons, only then this rule is applicable, because if the amount of water present in the 4 gallon jar is less than 4 gallons, only then it can be filled up to the rim, right? Correct? So after applying this rule, X, which is representative of 4 gallon jar, will contain value 4. That means it is filled to the fullest capacity 4, and Y, it may have any value and Y remains the same. Okay. Similarly, the rule 2 is applicable when 3 gallon jar is filled to its fullest capacity. Again, this rule 2 is applicable only if the 3 gallon jar contains water less than 3 gallons. Okay. So when I say X comma Y implies X comma 3, it means, you see Y here, that is the 3 gallon jar, it is filled with 3 gallons of water. The third rule here says you can pour some amount x1 of water out of the 4-gallon jar. You can pour some amount x1 is a variable representing some amount of water. So pour some amount x1 of water out of the 4-gallon jar. So after, see, initially the jar, 4-gallon jar, contains x amount water, right? After x1 amount is removed from the 4-gallon jar, the value that now is present is x minus x1, right? Suppose this x was 3, that means 4-gallon jar contained 3 gallons of water, and suppose out of this 3 gallon, say 1 gallon is removed. So what remains here will be 3 minus 1, that is 2 gallons of water. Rule 4 is applicable when you want to pour some water, say x1 amount of water, out of 3-gallon jar. The same thing is applicable here. So originally the 3 gallons jar will have y amount of water, and after x1 amount is removed, the amount of water will be reduced to y minus x1. Correct? Now rule 5 is applicable when you want to empty the entire content of 4-gallon jar. So whatever might be the value of x here, 4 gallon, you are reducing it to 0, whereas this 3-gallon jar's content is ignored, so it remains the same. Similarly, emptying the 3-gallon jar means y, which could represent some amount of water in 3-gallon jar, is reduced to 0. That means 3-gallon jar is emptied to the fullest. Rule 7, fill 4-gallon jar by pouring some water from 3-gallon jar. Okay, please read. Filling 4 gallons jar by pouring some water from 3 gallons jar. Now let's say x represents some water, okay, that is being poured from 3-gallon jar. Correct? So now x comma y is the initial values, where x can be some amount of water in 4-gallon jar, y could be some amount of water in 3-gallon jar. Now what we are doing in this case, you are pouring some water from 3-gallon jar onto the 4-gallon jar. So after water is transferred from 3-gallon to 4-gallon jar, 4-gallon jar is filled to its fullest capacity. So it is 4 now here. Whatever was the original capacity, it is now filled to the fullest, right? So the question here is how much amount of water was transferred, okay, from 3-gallon jar to fill 4-gallon jar. So what is 4 minus x? Okay, 4 minus x, 4 means the maximum capacity of 4-gallon jar, minus x meaning that much amount of water, okay, was transferred into 4-gallon jar. So 4 minus x was the current capacity of 4-gallon jar, or current amount of water that is being filled in 4-gallon jar. What is 4 minus x? 4 minus x refers to how much water, actual water, has been transferred from 3-gallon jar to the 4-gallon jar. So that is 4 minus x. Okay. So once this 4 minus x amount is transferred into 4-gallon jar, it has been filled to the fullest capacity 4. So once this is transferred here, what will be now present in 3-gallon jar? It will be original value of 3-gallon jar was y, so it is y minus 4 minus x. This much is remaining in the 3-gallon jar. Okay, it looks bit tricky, but try to analyze it, you will get it. Similarly, rule 8 is exactly the opposite. Filling 3-gallon jar by pouring some water from 4-gallon jar. Filling 3-gallon jar by pouring some water from 4-gallon jar. And what is that some water? Let's say y is that some water. Okay, so it will be 3 minus y. So it is now once the 3-gallon jar is filled, it will be filled to the fullest capacity. Okay, now how much water is transferred from 4 gallons to 3 gallons? It will be x minus 3 minus y. And what is 3 minus y? 3 minus y is the actual amount of water that is being transferred to 3 gallon to make it full. Fine. Now rule number 9 is empty 3-gallon jar by pouring all its water onto the 4-gallon jar. Okay. So original value was x comma y, and after doing this transfer, what is present in the 4 gallon jar? It is x plus y. That means the entire content of 3 gallon jar has been transferred to whatever is present in the 4 gallon jar. So it becomes x plus y. Now for this rule to be applied, remember that both the jars should not be already filled to the fullest. If both the jars are already full, then this rule will never be applicable. Now this is exactly ulta, emptying the 4 gallon jar by pouring all its water onto the 3 gallon jar. Okay, so it simply means that we have emptied this 4 gallon jar, and whatever is the current content, that is x, okay, that has been transferred to the 3 gallon jar, x plus y. Here also what I am saying is, for this action to execute, that much space should be available in 3 gallon jar, and 3 gallon jar should not be full already. Only then this rule will be applicable. Rule number 11 says, pour 2 gallons of water from 3 gallon jar to 4 gallon jar. That means now if the situation is such that in 4 gallon jar there is 0 amount of water, there is no water, and there is 2 gallons of water in 3 gallons jar, okay, then I am transferring this amount into this. So this 2 goes to that means 2 liters or 2 gallons goes to 4 gallon jar here, and once this amount is transferred, 3 gallon jar is empty. This is rule 11, and rule 12 is exactly the opposite, emptying 2 gallons in 3 gallon jar on the ground. So if finally at the end of this, okay, if 2 gallons of water, this is what is required, the 4 gallon jar should contain 2 gallons of water suppose, and if it contains 2 gallons of water, then at the end of this problem solving, you can again go back to the initial state by just pouring this 2 gallons onto the ground and making this jar empty. This rule 12 may or may not be applicable. Okay, if required, it can be applied. Okay. Now one solution to this water jet problem is this. Initially both the jars, this column is for 4 gallons capacity jar, this column is for 3 gallons capacity jar. Initially both the jars are having no water. Then what we do is we apply rule 2 and we fill the 3 gallon jar to its fullest capacity. Okay, then we apply rule number 9 and the entire content of this 3 gallon jar is transferred to the 4 gallon jar which was earlier empty. So this got transferred here, so that 3 gallon jar is now empty, whereas 4 gallon jar which was earlier empty, now it is filled with 3 gallons of water. Okay, so now I apply rule number 2 and I again fill the 3 gallon jar to its fullest capacity. So from 0, that is empty, now it is filled to 3. Now please note that after this stage, what happens is, what is the maximum capacity of this particular jar? 4 gallons. Right now how much water is there? 3 gallons. So how much capacity is still left? 1 gallon of water. Okay. So what I do is I use rule number 7 and I transfer from here some amount of water from 3 gallon to the 4 gallon jar, so that 4 gallon jar becomes full. So transfer some amount means I use rule 7. So if you just see here, there was 1 gallon empty space that was available here. So from 3 gallons, when I pour the water into 4 gallon jar, it will get filled to fullest capacity 4, and after pouring 1 gallon from here to here, what will remain here is 2 gallons, right? So at the end of this, 4 gallon jar will be filled now to the fullest, whereas 3 gallon jar will have exactly 2 gallons of water. And so that is what was required. At the end, your 3 gallon jar should contain exactly 2 gallons of water. And then since you could have even stopped here, okay, but we have applied one extra step, that is either rule 5 or rule 12 can be applied, wherein 4 gallon jar we have simply emptied it, so that at the end of this what we get is 3 gallon jar contains exactly 2 gallons of water and 4 gallon jar is empty. You could have kept it as it is also. So this is one way of how you can solve the problem. Another solution, so in the previous solution you started by filling 3 gallon jar, right? So in this solution, let us initially, when both are empty, let us first fill the 4 gallon jar to the fullest capacity. And this is by using rule number 1. Then I use rule number 8, and what I do is, okay, I transfer the content from 4 gallons jar to the 3 gallon jar so that it becomes full. Correct? So now when we pour the content of 4 gallon jar to 3 gallon jar, it will be filled up to 3 gallons, and what will be left in this jar is 1 gallon of water. Then I use rule number 8, which says empty 3 gallon jar. So this 3 gallon jar I am simply emptied. So it becomes 0, whereas this is unchanged. Okay, then rule 10 is applied, and what I have done is, okay, I have transferred this 1 gallon from the 4 gallon jar onto the 3 gallons. Okay, so and this has become empty. This is by using rule 10. Now please note, at this moment 4 gallon jar contains 0 amount of water, or the jar is empty, whereas 3 gallon jar contains exactly 1 gallon of water. Okay, then what I do is I again use rule 1, and I fill this 4 gallon jar to the fullest capacity, that is 4, and here it is 1. Correct? Now please note, what is the maximum capacity of this jar? It's 3, and right now there is 1 gallon of water that is present. So what is the empty how much amount of water can be still filled so that this 3 gallons can be filled to the fullest capacity? That means 2 gallons capacity is still left. Correct? So what I do, I use rule number 8, and I pour some amount of water from this jar to this jar so that this jar becomes full. So from 4 gallons, which is right now filled to the fullest, I pour water into the 3 gallon jar. So it, from 1 gallon, the amount raises to 3 gallons. So it is now full. Okay, please remember the vacant capacity which was left here was 2 gallons. So once that 2 gallons is transferred here, how much remains here will be 2 gallons. And exactly this is what was required. Okay, what answer you should get? Your 4 gallon jar somehow should contain 2 gallons of water, and now it is containing 2 gallons of water. Okay, now here in this, okay, I have not shown you another step. You could have even gone one step ahead by just simply pouring this or emptying this particular 3 gallon jar so that this value becomes 0 and this remains as it is, like what we did in the previous solution. But you can also keep it as it is, because irrelevant of how much value is present in 3 gallon jar, our full aim is what? Our aim is that 4 gallon jar at the end of this problem should contain 2 gallons of water, and this here it is, right? Now whenever you get two answers, most of the time what will happen is, for different problems you will get multiple answers. What is important is, what is the path cost? Okay, which particular solution out of all solution is the optimal solution, which is the most feasible solution. Okay, now you see, how did you get this answer? This is first step, second step, third step, fourth step, 5 step. So solution 1, you got solution 1 with 5 steps. The solution 2, if you see, 1 step, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got solution 2 with 6 steps. So if you see the path cost is nothing but cost incurred in moving from one state to another state, or cost incurred in taking one step each. And let us say we have kept cost value 1 for each path movement, right? So then according to that, for the first solution, the path cost was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for this particular thing the path cost is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So because of this, okay, I feel that solution 1 is the optimal solution compared to this solution. Okay, now whenever you are solving any problems like this, any games or any problems like this, you are bound to get multiple solutions, but the machine, artificial intelligent machine, should be able to give you the optimal solution. Okay, so this is the state space for water jet problem. Initially you see both the jars were empty. Okay, now there are two ways how you can approach, and we have seen both the solution. The first solution, what we did, we we proceeded by filling the 3-gallon jar to the fullest capacity, and this was the path 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to get this answer. Then in solution 2, in the second alternate solution, we started by filling the 4-gallon jar to the fullest, and if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, these were the steps. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are able to get the answer in 6 steps. Now please note, you see this dotted lines here, that means there are more branches which are possible, there are more solutions which could be possible. So this state space, actually in reality it would be very huge, okay, but I have only depicted 2 solution paths. So these are the 2 goal nodes, goal states. Now whenever in a state space, okay, whenever you have multiple goal states, right, then how to find out the optimal solution, for which you require something called as control strategy. Okay, and control strategy does what we have already seen last time. Control strategy tells you that if there are multiple rules that are available, which rule to be applied next is told by the control strategy. And when there are 2 rules which can be applied simultaneously, then it will tell you which order or which rule to apply first. Okay, we will see this. Now another problem that is very common is missionaries and cannibals. Okay, I will repeat this. See, in this problem, as you can see, there are initially 3 missionaries and 3 cannibals, okay, on one side of the river bank. There is only one boat and 2 people can travel at a time. Okay, their aim is what? From bank A of the river, you are supposed to move to bank B of the river. Okay, from bank A of the river, your aim is to move to the bank B of the river. Then boat can carry at a time only 2 people. Now once the boat reaches this side, okay, okay, one person will have to get down and other person will have to be present in the boat so as to come back to this side. Boat cannot move on its own. There has to be one person who has to row the boat. Okay, so the problem is very simple. There are 2 banks of the river, bank A, bank B. On one side of the bank there are 3 missionaries, okay, 3 priests who are depicted with faces wearing those caps, brown caps, and there are 3 cannibals or demons, you can say. They are standing there, and the goal of this particular problem is all the 3 missionaries and all the 3 cannibals, they have to safely go to the other side of the river bank. Okay, now there is one boat, there is only one boat for them to move. At a time, only 2 people can sit into the boat. Once you reach the other side, boat has to come back, so one person has to row the boat. Okay, so both, even if both people get down, okay, somebody else will have to take over and come back to the other side. Okay, now what is the constraint? Main constraint. At any point of time, okay, at any bank A or bank B, if the number of missionaries happen to be less than number of cannibals, at any point of time while playing this game, at any side of the bank, if number of missionaries happens to be less than number of cannibals, then these cannibals are going to overpower the missionaries. They are going to eat the missionaries and the game is over. So while playing this game, what you are supposed to do is you have to follow these rules, and the main constraint imposed is at any point of time or at no point of time, at any side of the bank, number of missionaries should not go down than the number of cannibals. Okay, so this is the game. Okay, you see how it is solved. Initially there are 3 missionaries, 3 cannibals. Just see. So the problem is solved in 11 steps. Okay, if you want you can see it again. Please see. That's it. Okay, you can try it on your books. Basically this is a problem to be tried. Okay, there are also so many flash games on or there are many Play Store games for missionaries and cannibals which you can play. Fine. So again, for this kind of problem, missionaries and cannibals, the problem formulation has to be done. Okay, now what is the initial state? What is the initial state here? All the missionaries and all the cannibals and the boat, all of them are on the left side of the bank. So you can see this dot means missionaries, these triangles, black triangles are cannibals, and this is a boat. All of them should be initially present on the bank A or the first bank of the river. Okay, this is the initial state. Now final state is the one wherein all the missionaries, all the cannibals and the boat should be present on the right side of the river bank. Okay, so that's a final state which I have not shown. Now what are the actions that you can take so that from initial state you move to the final state? First, one missionary crossing. Okay, one cannibal crossing, two missionaries crossing, two cannibals crossing, one missionary and one cannibal crossing. Okay, these are the possible crossings that are available. So that means one missionary can do the crossing, one single cannibal can do the crossing. That means one missionary can sit in the boat and go to the other side. He may come back, or somebody else can sit in the boat and come back. Similarly, one cannibal can cross from bank A to bank B, and then either he can come back or somebody else can replace him and come back. Okay, so single missionary or single cannibal can go from one side to other side, or maybe two missionaries together can go to the other side, or maybe two cannibals together can go to the other side, or one missionary and one cannibal should together can go to the other side, provided when you reach the other side the number of missionaries no way should get less to number of cannibals. Right? So the rules are written in a more formal way. The first rule, one missionary sailing the boat from bank 1 to bank 2. Okay, so this is a boat and there is one missionary. So basically the first parameter is for the left bank, second is for the right bank. Then rule 2 is one missionary sailing the boat from bank 2 to bank 1. So rule 3, two missionaries sailing from bank 1 to bank 2. So two missionaries sailing from bank 1 to bank 2. Two missionaries sailing from bank 2 to bank 1. Rule 5 is one missionary and one cannibal sailing from bank 1 to bank 2, M, C. One missionary and one cannibal sailing from bank 2 to bank 1, so C, M. Then two cannibals sailing from bank 1 to bank 2 is C, C. Two cannibals sailing from bank 2 to bank 1 is C, C. One cannibal sailing from bank 1 to bank 2, 0, C. Right? Only one cannibal, so there is nobody else in the boat. Basically this is the content of the boat. One cannibal sailing from bank 2 to bank 1, C, 0. So this is the solution, one possible solution which I have shown. So initially you see start state is the one wherein all missionaries, all cannibals are present on bank 1. You see 3 M's and 3 C's. So M represents a missionary, C represents a cannibal. Okay, and how many people are there on the other side of the bank? Bank 2, there is nobody, right? And where is the boat? Boat is initially present in bank 1. Okay, so now rule number 5 is applied, and what to do? Okay, one missionary and one cannibal goes to the other side from bank 1 to bank 2. So how many are left? One missionary less, one cannibal less. And you see on the other side of the river bank you get one missionary and you get one cannibal, and boat is now present at bank 2. Then at bank 2 we apply rule number 2, and the missionary is again sent back to bank 1, right? So you see when this missionary comes back to bank 1, now there are 3 missionaries and 2 cannibals, whereas on bank 2 now only one cannibal remains, and boat, since it has moved from bank 2 to bank 1, now it is present at bank 1. Right? Then rule 7 is applied, and now we are sending 2 cannibals on the other side of the bank. So okay, 2 cannibals are sent on the other side of the bank. So already there was one cannibal on the bank 2, and now there are 2 more. So 3 cannibals reach the other side of the bank. one was already present, and now two have gone from the through the boat. So now there are three cannibals on the other side, and boat has reached bank 2. Okay. Now we are moving one cannibal back to bank 1, right? So one cannibal will sit in the boat and reach bank 1. So now on bank 1, apart from 3 missionaries, that person who has travelled, cannibal, is also there, whereas here the number of cannibals present on bank 2 is 1 less, and the boat is now at bank 1. Then rule 3 is applied, and here what we do is we transfer 2 missionaries to the other side. So 2 missionaries reach the other side, and boat is also present at bank 2. So now you see there is exactly 1 missionary, 1 cannibal on the bank 1, and 2 missionaries, 2 cannibals present on bank 2. Right? Now what we do is 1 missionary and 1 cannibal we move from bank 2 to bank 1. Okay? So 1 missionary, 1 cannibal, when they come here, okay, you get 2 missionaries and 2 cannibals on this side, and here there is only 1 cannibal, 1 missionary. Fine? Then we are at bank 1. Then again rule 3 is applied, and what we do is these 2 missionaries are sent now on the other side, M and M. So once they are sent, this side there are only 2 cannibals left, this side there are 3 missionaries, 1 cannibal. Right? Number of missionaries are more, so no problem. And boat is at bank 2. Then rule 10 is applied, and now what we do? Now boat has to come back, right? So this cannibal here is moved to this side. So earlier there were 2 cannibals, now there are 3 cannibals on the side, and boat is now present at bank 1. Okay, now it is very simple. You again apply rule 7. 2 cannibals you are transferring to the other side of the bank. So there is only 1 cannibal remaining here, and this side there are 2 cannibals who have come. Fine, and boat has reached bank 2. Then we apply rule 10, and 1 cannibal here comes back with the boat, right here. So once he comes back, there is only 1 cannibal left here, 3 missionaries left here. Then these 2 cannibals, they together sit in the boat and they move to the other side, so that there is no one left on bank 1 and everybody had safely reached bank number 2. Now if you see the number of steps, okay, this was the initial state. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The solution is achieved in 11 steps. If there is any other possible, now you play this personally and find out whether there is any other solution with the less number of steps or more number of steps. But when there are multiple solutions, whichever solution which has least path cost will be the best solution. So this is the the state space for the breadth first search. Sorry, not breadth first search. Don't read this breadth first search. We are yet to see what is breadth first search. Just see. This is a state space for missionaries and cannibals problem. Okay, you see from the initial state there are 3 possibilities that you can make, and then if you go for this possibility, then this is a path trail. If you go for and you get stuck over here. If you go with this, then this is a path trail, and maybe if you take this particular path, then this is a path trail, and this is incomplete state space. There are more states which are going down, but I have just shown you a part of it. So this kind of state space is generated for missionaries and cannibals. So this is a problem formulation for missionaries and cannibals. In the similar manner, there is also 8 queens problem. Now what is 8 queens problem? Now you see this is a chessboard, okay, and assume that usually chess is played between 2 players, right? Okay, let us assume that there are 8 players, enemies of each other. There are 8 players. So basically there are 8 queens, okay. Each queen is rival of other queen. So all these 8 queens have to be placed on the board in such a way that no queen is attacking the other queen, right? So this is called as 8 queens problem. It's a very simple problem. Initially what we do, 1 queen you place, okay, then you try to place the second queen, make sure that they are not attacking each other. Then you place the third queen, okay, make sure that that third queen is also not attacking each other. If yes, if the queen is attacking, then you change the position of that queen. Still it is not possible, then you may have to backtrack and change the position of the previous queen, okay, and go on doing this setup till all the 8 queens are positioned on this 8x8 chessboard such that no queen is attacking other queen. So this is one problem. You will have to in the tutorials you will have to get the solution to this 8 queens problem, and you will also have to formulate the problem formulation for 8 queens problem. This is a task for you to do. Also, there is a traveling salesperson problem. Now, this is a very simple, typical problem. Traveling salesperson problem is another problem in AI where there is a salesman, and salesman has to go from one city to another city. You see, from this city to this city, from this city to this city, selling his products. Okay. Now, traveling salesperson problem is all about how this salesman can take the path so that he does the work efficiently. That means with less number of time he should be able to visit maximum cities or all the cities, or with less number of distance traveled he should be able to visit all the cities, less number of effort required he should be able to visit all the cities, and so on, right? So again, see, if the salesman is moving from one city to another, okay, then to another, and at any point of time, suppose he does not get any path from here, he should not be able to revisit the city which is already visited. That also you should keep in mind. So this is traveling salesperson problem. This is another problem in AI whose problem formulation you can do, right? Now the problem with this traveling salesperson is combinatorial explosion. Now what is combinatorial explosion? Just see, in traveling salesperson problem, basically the number of routes, okay, you see these are routes, these are the routes, right? This is one route, second route, third route. So number of routes or number of edges, okay, is proportional to number of cities minus 1. Okay, so suppose there are 100 cities, then how many routes will be there connecting those 100 cities will be 100 minus 1 factorial. Okay, so number of routes is proportional to number of cities minus 1 factorial. For that matter, when we try to practically do this, if it takes 1 hour of CPU time to solve for 30 cities, okay, just for 30 cities, then 30 hours for 31 cities will be required, and then 330 hours for 32 cities will be required. So you see the number of hours are increasing exponentially. This is called as combinatorial explosion. It may so happen that at some point of time your RAM will be not able to bear the calculation and your problem will crash. Okay, we will specifically see what this combinatorial exploration is and what it does while we are studying so the search techniques in the next lectures. Now just because I have mentioned some problem, there are more problems. Basically for exam they ask you to formulate different AI problems. So one famous problem is called as river crossing puzzle. Okay, there are different river crossing puzzles which are available on Google Play. You can download this particular app for yourself and you try to play these games, because you may be asked to formulate the problem for these games, or you may be also asked see, in the first unit there are so many searching techniques. So as an applicative question, they may give you one of these problems and ask you to apply the particular searching technique and show the solution to the problem. For example, there is something called as A-star algorithm, there is something called as best first search, depth first search, breadth first search. So they may ask any of these puzzle or any of these problems, and they may ask you to apply the algorithm for that particular puzzle or for that particular problem. So for solving such problem, you should know what actually the puzzle is. So I recommend you all to download this particular app from Google Play and try to play yourself and record the solutions. We end this topic with the last thing, control strategies. Okay, now we have seen in the previous case, let's say in case of your missionaries, cannibals or water jug problem here. So whenever we have a state space for any problem, the state space is so huge that without a proper way of traversing and searching, okay, it will be very much time consuming, or it will be very tedious for the computer to get to the solution. So what is important in this case is how to achieve the solution efficiently, how to traverse this particular state space efficiently. Okay, in data structure, whenever I talk about traversal, it means traversing or visiting each and every node in this particular tree exactly once. But when I talk about traversal in AI, it means that in this particular state space there will be some goal nodes or goal states. Traversal means you have to find a way from the initial state to the goal state only. The moment you reach goal state, you have to stop. Now the problem is if there are multiple paths that are reachable from initial state to the goal state. For example, this is one of the goal state and one path is here. This is one path. Again, see, this is another goal state. So another path from initial state is here. So another issue in problem solving technique in AI is that if there are multiple paths that are taking you from initial state to the goal state, then which path is the best path? Which is the best solution? So many things can be considered here. The path cost is one of the very important factors that you can consider for optimal path, optimal solution. Okay, so what is important in this case is control strategies. So as we have seen, control strategies, they help us decide which rule is to be applied next. Then what to do when there are more than one matching rules. Okay, now a good control strategy, it should have these two characteristics. First, good control strategy should cause motion. Now what is the meaning of causing motion? Okay, let's consider your water jug problem. Suppose there is a water jug, okay, say 4-gallon jar, and there is the very first rule, that is filling 4-gallon jar to the fullest. Okay, suppose the control strategy you have devised such that every time that you apply this control strategy, the very first rule should be applied first and then the second rule to be applied. What will happen? Now first time you apply the first rule, and first rule says fill the 4-gallon jar to the fullest capacity. Assume that the 4-gallon jar is filled to the fullest capacity. In the second iteration again, okay, you apply the same rule. Suppose you apply the same rule, first rule, that is fill the 4-gallon jar to the fullest capacity. Now 4-gallon jar has already been filled to the fullest capacity. So if you are trying to fill it again, then the water will overflow. So there will be wastage of steps. So you can't have such kind of stagnant strategy. You can't have such stagnant strategy. So the control strategy should cause motion. Okay, there should not be any wastage of steps. That is what it means. And second, control strategy should be systematic. Okay, that means the rules are supposed to be applied in a systematic manner. For example, I'll just tell you the example of non-systematic control strategy. Okay, suppose the first rule is applied, filling the 4-gallon jar to the fullest. Then suppose another rule number X is applied, emptying the 4-gallon jar. Again, rule number 1 is applied of filling the 4-gallon jar. So you see, so many redundant steps are there, so many wasteful steps are there. First you are filling the 4-gallon jar, then simply you are emptying the full 4-gallon jar, and again you are refilling it. So you are actually not doing anything, you are just wasting steps. So that is another quality, that is the control strategy should be systematic. Now these control strategies are classified as uninformed or blind search or control strategy and informed or directed search or control strategy. Okay. Uninformed or blind search control strategies are the one wherein we do not have additional information about the states beyond the problem definition. Here the total search space is looked for the solution. No information is used to determine preference of one child over the other. An example of this is breadth first search, depth first search, depth limited search, and there are more techniques. Whereas informed or directed search control strategies are the one wherein there is some information which is available about the problem space. We call that as heuristic, and it is used to compute the preference among the children for the exploration and expansion. And the examples of these control strategies are best first search, problem decomposition, A star, and mean analysis. So that is it for today's lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to see in depth what is uninformed and informed search strategy, and we are also going to revise what are control strategies in more depth. Thank you.